So welcome to the police department's night for the Citizens Academy. 2 years ago when we did this, we had 3 nights. This year, everybody's doing 1 night for every department, which so we're going to sandwich a lot into tonight and try to go through as much as we can. I'm going to talk for about 2 hours, 25 minutes roughly, maybe a couple minutes longer depending. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to talk for that long. We're going to try to keep it as dynamic as we can for you. So we're going to try to show you a lot and have you do some things. And I'll talk a little bit about the department, and certainly we'll take some questions at the end. But we want to kind of give you a day in the life of a police officer as best we can today. And obviously we're going to show you some dogs too, because everybody likes the dogs. So if you look at the schedule, a little bit of an overview of the police department until about 6:40-ish, because we're running a little bit behind. And then out back, what we've done is we put some of our vehicles out there, our command truck, our armored vehicle, one of our community service vehicle, our side-by-side vehicle. And we'll let you look at those, climb through the command truck, see kind of what the capabilities are of that truck. We bought that this past year. It was just built for us, customized for us. It cost us about $165,000 out of a capital improvement budget. It replaces a vehicle that we had since the early 2000s, which was an old retrofitted ambulance. And so this one has much more capability, and we've used it. We probably use it once a month, a couple times a month on average for scenes, for events, for critical incidents, things of that nature. So we'll let you work through some of those and see those vehicles. And then we're going to do something a little bit different. I heard that the fire department had you putting out some fake fires, and so I was told I had to top that. And so I had to think of some things to try to do that. And this is going to be completely optional for you, and whoever wants to participate can. Whoever doesn't is no problem. You can certainly observe and do some watching. But has anybody ever heard of simunitions? Simunitions, everybody heard of paintball guns? All right, simunitions is kind of like paintball guns on steroids. We're not going to shoot any of you tonight, all right? We're not going to hurt any of you tonight. We're not going to shoot at you or shoot you or anything like that. But what we are going to do is going to give you the opportunity, if you want, to work through probably 2 simunition scenarios in which you'll be the police officer. And we'll put you in 2 scenarios that, again, there'll be no danger of you getting hurt, no danger of anybody touching you, no danger of anybody shooting you. It's really just you assessing a situation as a police officer and then trying to make a decision on what you might do. And certainly we know none of you have been trained as police officers, so unless someone has been trained as a police officer, then you have an unfair advantage. But we're not expecting you to be trained, we're just expecting you to see if you can go through some of the steps to make a decision in a split second. Has anybody heard of the recent bill that was, I think it was in California, that someone had put forth that said they wanted to put in place a bill that said that you cannot draw your firearm as a police officer until you call a supervisor? Anybody heard about that? No? So there was a bill put forth, and I don't remember, I should have done the research, and I think it was California where they wanted to say, all right, if you're going to draw your firearm, then you need to call a supervisor first and ask permission. And so what I'm hoping to do, it does not register on the common sense scale, but what I'm hoping to do is to show you why that might be a problem. So what we have is a couple things. This is not a real firearm. Okay, this is a training firearm. It's called a simunition gun. It's not loaded, promise. And what this is that this is the same exact make model of our gun. If you look at the one I'm carrying right here, this is the real one, this is the fake one. It's blue because it shoots the paintball rounds. But it actually fires like a real gun. It has paint marking rounds that actually project out, and when they strike people, they make a paint mark. And we use this for realistic training. We try to do as much reality-based scenario training as we can, and this gives us instant feedback. So when we have an officer who's being the police officer, and then we have an officer or role player being the bad guy or girl, whatever the may be, we can arm one or both. Obviously the officer will always have a gun, but we can give a gun to someone, a role player being a criminal. And then we can have various scenarios where it's any number of things you see in the news, any number of things you could ever imagine that we'll face, we can actually act out without obviously having to actually shoot each other. But these do hurt when they hit the person, so we always wear protective gear, and I have a mask here. If anybody who chooses to do that, you'll wear one of these, not that because someone's going to shoot at you, just for safety reasons and liability reasons. And then the actor that we're going to have, the role players, will have one of these on. And then we'll put you through some scenarios where you may have to make a decision whether or not you should shoot the person, or whether or not you should actually point your gun at them, or whether or not you even need to take your gun out. So something to think about for a little bit of time. Again, we're not going to have you, you're not going to be moving around. We'll put you in a kind of a spot, and we'll say, all right, here's your spot, and this is the scenario, this is what the call you're responding to, and this is the information you have, just like we would get responding to a call. Sometimes very limited information. And then you're going to deal with whatever the person is doing. And again, no one's going to touch you. It's like a haunted house, right? No, they tell you no one's going to touch you, no one's going to hit you, no one's going to shoot you. You're completely safe. It's just a scenario-based. Now, we do things a lot differently when we train, but for you, I just want to give you an opportunity to see what it's like to be in that situation and be in that scenario. Does anybody know why it's not 100% realistic? Why is it not 100% realistic? Why can we never get 100% realistic with that type of training? You're safe, right? You might get shot by this if you're a police officer, but you're never going to actually get shot, right? The difference is that we can do this training, and this is the best training we can do, this dynamic training that we have. And we have, at the academy, we have what's called a FATS machine, or a simulator where we can actually see video and shoot at the screen and things of that nature. The problem is it's never 100% accurate or 100% realistic, because the stakes are different. You're safe. You're never going to lose your life. Whereas these officers in here, in our patrols off in the street, they can go to a call in 30 seconds and lose their life. I mean, it's that serious, that much life or death. And so you never can get to that type of reality-based training that actually mimics 100% what we actually face or could face on the street every day. So we're going to give you that opportunity, and we might split you in half as a group. And then one half would actually see a demonstration of less lethal methods that we have. So we have bean bags, we have pepper ball, we have the taser. We'll show you a taser demonstration where one of our officers actually volunteered to be tased so that you can see the effects of that. You should all send her a Christmas card because no one generally wants to go through that. I sent out an email. I said, hey, did we have any volunteers? And she actually stepped forward, one of our newer officers, and you're going to actually get to see the probes getting shot into the officer and see the effects of that and what that means for us as far as safety is concerned and as a tool for us. So again, anybody thinking about it really quickly, how many people think they might want to go through a simulation scenario? Show of hands. Okay, so about half-ish. All right, that's great. I would encourage you all to do it. Again, you can make no mistakes. There's no risk to you. We'll let you take the gun and fire off a round real quick, a simulation round outside of the scenario, so you know what it's like. So you know it's not a kickback like it would be a regular gun. It's a much less kickback, and so we'll prepare you as best we can so that you're comfortable with it before you actually go into the scenario. Does that change anybody's mind? And maybe yeah, now I want to do it. Hopefully it does. Again. It's almost like shooting a Nerf gun. If you ever shot a Nerf gun, a little bit of a kick to a Nerf gun, same thing with these. But I would really encourage you to do it. I think you'll kick yourself if you don't, unless you're really opposed to it, and that's okay too, because nowhere else are you going to get the opportunity to do this other than right here. And you may never get another chance again unless you come back to another Citizens Academy, because it's very specialized training. The equipment costs a lot of money, and you might not get another opportunity. So, and then we're going to have a canine demonstration with two of our canines. We have canine Blesk here, and what else we got? Nitro. Oh, Nitro. Yep, Nitro. Canine Nitro. Nitro is our newest dog. Just came out of drug school. Still has to go to patrol school, but we have both of those dogs working right now. And then at about 8:30, we'll have a little question and answer. So if you have any questions, and that's it for the night. It was great to have you, and. Just kidding. And so we'll end with some question and answer. And if you have any questions stored up throughout the night, then certainly that will be your time to ask. I will stay here as late as you'd like me to, even past 9 o'clock. If you have questions, things you want to ask, talk about, it's no problem. I'll sleep in my office if I have to. It won't be the first time. So with that, does anybody have any questions before we start? Okay, you guys missed the most important part of the entire night, which is we're going to do some scenario training if you're interested. So we're going to give you an opportunity to actually act as a police officer, if you wish, in a simulation scenario, which uses a fake firearm that shoots like paintballs, but you won't be harmed, touched, hurt, shot at. It's really just you making decisions. So if that's something you're interested in, you'll have that opportunity. All right. Go ahead.
Has the officer been tased before? Is this her first time?
I think she has been tased before, yep.
Okay. Not
Yep.
so nervous this time around.
No, well, it's yeah, you say that, but all of our officers get tased, get tased to be certified, which again doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me because we don't shoot people when we qualify with guns, but we end up tasing people and we spray them when they get certified, which is interesting. All right, any other questions before we get started? All right, so if you look at your packets, and I haven't given you a ton of information because I'm not going to try to overwhelm you, you have a little welcome letter from me. You can read that whenever you'd like. You have the schedule of what we're going to try to get done tonight. The scenarios do take a little bit of time to kind of get people prepared and work them through that. That's why we want to split people up, and we'll have an hour to do both of those things. And here's our victim right here. Before we actually do the static display and look at the static display of equipment, I think we're going to do the Taser demonstration. So after I go over, give you kind of an overview of who we are, what we do, that type of thing. We'll go outside and then we'll do a Taser demonstration with the officer, and then we'll let you go through the vehicles, ask questions, poke around, do whatever you want. Hopefully Ashley will be recovered by then. So in the room tonight we have Lieutenant Matt Isham. Lieutenant Isham is the commander of the Operations Support Bureau. So everything that's facility related, vehicle related, he does a little bit of prosecution support. He does RFPs, RFQs. He does vehicles, buys vehicles, purchases things, all the equipment needed for the department. He takes on a huge swath of responsibilities for the police department, and it's so immense. In training is one of the biggest things he does. Is he arranges all training for the officers, sets up the training schedules, sends them, tracks them, puts them on the schedule. We dedicate a lot of resources to training, probably more. I would estimate that we spend more money per officer on training than any other department in the state, because it's a huge liability area not to train your officers. It's important to give them the best training you can so that they're equipped to do any number of services that we're required to do, not only things that are kind of life safety, but also just services to the public and the people who live in the city. So huge area of responsibility for him. We have the Deputy Chief, Phil Roberts over there, who's in charge of everything operations. So everything operational within the department falls under his purview. So patrol, detectives, the training portion of it, he's in charge of all of that. So he makes sure everything is running efficiently and effectively every day in the station, where I take on the vast majority of administrative duties. So the budget, meetings, and grants, and a lot of different things that I'm looking at. And then we have Detective Jerome over there, who's in detectives, one of our 4 detectives that we have. We have Officer, we have Ashley, what am I having? Mills, Officer Mills, who's fairly new. I apologize for that, Ashley. She came to us from Massachusetts, where she was an officer. We were really fortunate to actually get both of those officers from other departments, and they're certified, and they came to us certified, so they didn't have to go through the academy, which was a huge benefit to us to get really 2 highly qualified police officers. And you're going to see a number of other officers tonight as we go through the night. And we're almost full staff, which is something that hasn't happened. Huh? I should knock on wood. Where's the cat? Oh, there he is. I didn't even see you sitting over there. That's Captain Cohen sitting over there. Who's he's hiding. He's hiding over there. He's in charge of professional standards. So Captain Cohen's in charge of accreditation, clear accreditation process. He's in charge of internal affairs. He does policy work. He does a number of different things. He oversees communications, our communications division. So he has quite a bit of responsibility as well. And again, you're going to see a number of different officers as we go through the night and go through our schedule. So for us, we're 35 police officers. We have a full-time 35 complement of staff. That's up 2 from a couple years ago, where we had 33. We once had 35 about 7 years ago, and then 2 positions got cut. 2 sworn positions actually got cut in the budget. And then we had an administrative assistant position that was cut in the budget. So we were just able to get the 2 officers back through a federal grant called a COPS hiring grant. We have not got the administrative assistant position back. And we also have not gotten another lieutenant's position back that was cut as a result of the budget. So, we're like every single department in the city, like every single municipality in the state. We struggle to get the resources that we need, because there's a balance that needs to be struck between taxation and how we provide those services. But I think, having said that, I think we're a pretty well-funded department. I think we have the resources that we need to be able to provide the services that we want to, and and I think as you, the residents, and as the the business owners and the stakeholders in the city expect us to provide. So I think we're well positioned from our budget to do that. But when you talk about personnel, that's a whole other conversation, because that's one police officer is $110,000 per year, with benefits, with with pay and all those types of things. So you can't just add people. That's a huge chunk of change to go into your budget. So it's very strategic when we do that. But we were fortunate to get a grant to be able to add those two. So 35 officers. We have about 26 in the patrol division. That's our biggest division in the police department. It's the lion's share of what we do. It's our core mission. So when you see an officer out in a marked car in uniform, responding to calls, responding to alarms, responding to take incident reports, arresting people, responding to emergencies, that's the lion's share of what we do. And we use 26 people to do that. And the reason we have 26 is because we have 3 to 4 to 5 people on at a time. Ideally, we'd like to have 4 individual cars out in the street patrolling and answering calls at any given time. 5 is like Christmas. But 4 is ideal, and 3 is the absolute minimum. If we have 3 people in cars, we're doing bare bones policing, and that happens a lot, especially if we're down on personnel, or if we have a lot of people who are on injury or on leave or in training. So we're managing a lot of different things to try to make that happen. We have an overtime budget, and we use that strategically to try to have that 4th car at all times as much as we can. But then we strategically don't fill that car, say at like 2 in the morning, from 2 to 6 in the morning, where we have everybody sleeping. Hopefully the criminals are sleeping. Things are a lot quieter. We may go down to that 3-car minimum. But 3 is the absolute minimum that we can run to try to be able to provide those services. If we go lower than that, we run the very real risk of having an emergency on one side of the city and an emergency on the other side of the city and not being able to respond to both. And that's a problem. So we have 4 people in our detective division, which again is an extremely busy division. It's not emergency services related, meaning they're not running out of the building every day answering alarm calls and calls for service, but they're working on countless investigations and reports that are taken at the patrol level. So when they take a report about a crime, if the crime is serious enough or requires a lot of follow-up, that will go upstairs to detectives and we'll work on it. They also do backgrounds. They also do grand jury hearings to present cases in front of the grand jury for felony indictments. They do sex offender registration, sex offender investigations. They do many serious investigations, from homicides to sex assaults to anything you can think of, drug investigations. We also have a drug investigator as well within the detective division that works undercover. And they address really the very real and ongoing drug crisis that we have, not only in Lebanon, but across the state. Our dispatch is a regional dispatch, or not, I shouldn't say regional, but dispatches for police and fire. And so we have 8 communication specialists along with a manager in that division. And we have 2 dispatchers on almost all the time, with the exception of the overnight hours from about 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And we do that because we have the fire calls coming in, E911 calls, policing calls. It comes quite a bit to manage with those 2 dispatchers. And much like the minimum of 3 people on the street, as far as police officers are concerned, for safety reasons, we need to have 2 people in there almost 18 hours a day, because at any given time, not only can the phone ring, but someone could call in with an emergency, a medical emergency, a police emergency, but one of our officers could call in with an emergency as well, from any number of different things that are going on there. So they have to be, it's a really high stress job, and they have to be kind of on the ball all the time. And so with these support services, like we talked about with Lieutenant Isham doing training and doing a number of other things, we have a full-time prosecutor who his job is just to go to court, prosecute cases, represent us in court, answer motions, go to trial, doing those types of things, handling, traffic tickets and that kind of stuff. We have a parking control officer, which is fairly new for us. We had it a number of years ago. It went away because of budget cuts, but the council kind of came to us and said we have a parking issue downtown. Not that we have too much parking, but we're not having any turnover from the time spaces. So they asked us to do a little bit of enforcement And we do that to the tune of about 8 to 10 hours a week, varied throughout the week. Not the most popular thing that we do in the world, that's for sure. And that's where we're kind of different from the fire department too. And this is not a slam on them at all, because we work really well with them. But if you think about firefighters, when you call them, they're always coming to help you, right? They're always coming to help you, no matter what usually happens. They're not going to come there and throw you in jail, right? And if they are, you want to call us, because that's unusual. But for us, we kind of have a stigma attached to us, where we're enforcement minded, right? And that's part of the mission of what we do, is that we protect people and we stop people and we write them tickets sometimes. And then, maybe some of you in this room have gotten a ticket from one of us or another police officer. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person or that, you need to be in jail, but, there might have been something that happened, speeding, being on your cell phone, that needed to be addressed by the police. And that does not make us popular sometimes. And so what we do to try to balance that is we try to engage the community as much as we can. So my philosophy, and I've been here for about 3.5 years, is that we try to balance our enforcement mission, our enforcement role, with our engagement role, our engagement responsibility in the community. So when you see us out there doing Coffee with a Cop events, and we're out there on National Night Out on the Green, or at Farmers Market, or in the parades, or in any other number of things that we do, ice cream patrols, we do that for a couple of reasons. One, we believe in it, and we believe in trying to get people to know us and see us for people and human beings rather than this uniform that we wear. But also that you feel trusting in us, that you can come and tell us things, you can rely upon us, you don't hesitate to call us to ask questions or to resolve problems for you. And then there's the youth part of it, which is to engage the young people in our community so that they can trust us and they feel confident that we're there in their best interest. So a lot of different reasons, but it's kind of a balancing act. We don't want to be seen as the people who just write tickets and arrest people all the time, because it's far more than that. We do far more than that on a daily basis. So those are some of the things we do. One of the biggest things we have going on right now, our biggest initiatives, is kind of being saddled by Captain Cohen, which is accreditation. And has anybody ever heard of CALIA accreditation for police departments? Okay. I wouldn't expect you to. It's not something you would probably want to be reading about unless you want to try to put yourself to sleep. What we have is it's an international accreditation standard. And what it is that it ensures that police departments across the world, not just the country, across the world, are using best practices in how they do everything. So when we have a policy manual that says, these are the things we can do, this is how we should do it, we have to, those standards can come from a number of different places. You can just make policies up, but it doesn't mean you're doing things the best way you possibly could. And so what accreditation is it looks at you, it's a third party, it's called the Commission for Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, and they're a third party. They actually come out and assess your police department, and it's a 3-year process. So once we enrolled, which we did last year, we have 3 years to prove to them that we're worthy of accreditation. So what we have to do is we have to modify our policies as necessary to meet, 164 standards, Tim? 181? 181 standards that say, when you have a pursuit policy, it has to have these things included. When you have a use of force policy, it has to have these things included. There's reporting requirements. For example, every year we have to report on our use of force incidents, our pursuit incidents, our internal affairs incidents. And we have to tell people what those results are, and we do that now. And it's a checks and balance. And so we've been going through that. We have a consultant that works along with Captain Cohen that helps us write policy, modify policy, looks at our facility for things that need to be upgraded, changed, modified. For example, our evidence room, we actually just installed a custom cage system in there to separate valuables and drugs and firearms, because a CALIA accreditation standard is that you have separate secure areas for those high valuable or high risk items. So those are some of the things that we've done. It's an ongoing process. We're about 1 year and a couple of months into it, and we're cruising right along. We're doing really well. Captain Cohen works really hard on it, and with our CALIA consultant, they really are doing a tremendous job, making sure we're on track. And we anticipate within the next year to have a successful mock accreditation, which is when we kind of go through a dry run, and then to actually get accredited, which there is less than 20 departments in the state of New Hampshire that are accredited. And so we're hoping to be one of those in the next year, which is a huge accomplishment. And we'll go and hopefully get our accreditation certificate at one of the conferences they have nationally. So that's one of our big initiatives right now. It means a lot to me. It's something I came here when I was hired to be the chief here that I had in my sights, and everybody in the organization is pushing forward and looking to achieve that. The second big initiative I think that would kind of resonate is a body camera program. We've had cameras in our cars for a long time now, 10, 12 years, but only in the last 2 years did we start a body camera program. And if you're looking nationally at what everybody's talking about in law enforcement, contemporary law enforcement, body cams is where we're headed to. So we got ahead of that curve. We actually purchased them with a donation made by a resident, and then we went and got a federal grant to upgrade that program. So now every officer in the department has a body camera, and when they're working at patrol capacity, a primary patrol capacity, you're going to see them with this box on their chest that will be the Axon body camera. And so everything is recorded. Every contact with a citizen that is enforcement related is recorded. The only time we don't record is if we just happen to be walking down the street and we might greet you and say hi. If we're at a community engagement event, if we're at National Night Out, we're not going to have those running all the time. And we're going to tell you when we do have them running. So if you happen to have contact with one of us to report a crime or get stopped in a motor vehicle stop, they're going to be, hi, nice to meet you, good evening, just to let you know that we're being audio and video recorded. So we have that program, and it's working really well.
So are there clear requirements around body cameras yet, or is it?
There are. So it's not a requirement per se. What it is the best practice, yeah. So there are standards. There are certain things you must have for accreditation, and there are other standards that say that if you do have body cameras, these are the way you have to implement them. And what's interesting about the body camera program, when we went after the federal grant had requirements that went above and beyond any CLIA requirement. That was a year-long process for us. We had to write policy, modify it, include certain things. We had to push it out to community groups to review it, revise it, give us feedback. It was quite an undertaking. So I think I'm proud to say that our body-worn camera program is not only nationally certified per se, but also fits the CLIA requirements. Who had a question? Go ahead.
It was back on the accreditation. Given that it's a 3-year process, do y'all have to get re-accredited?
Every 3 years.
So it's every 3 years?
Every 3 years.
Undergoing it for 3 years then?
Yep, so once you get, so this is self-assessment. So this is the initial accreditation because we haven't been accredited before. So once we get our initial accreditation, then we have to maintain those standards, and we get rechecked every 3 years. And actually every year they do kind of a spot check where they'll remotely get in and check not only your policies, but also our proofs. And what a proof is it's not enough just to say, yeah, we have a pursuit policy, we have pursuit reporting forms, and we have these checks and balances. We actually have to show it. So we have to show them examples of, yep, we had a pursuit in this state, here's our form, it fits, it was a policy review, and we hit all the standards, and we're doing exactly what we said we were doing. Same thing with use of force, same thing with many other standards. It's not enough just to say, yeah, we have a policy, and then walk away and never think about it again. We actually have to show them yearly on a limited basis that we're following that, and then on the 3-year basis, we go through the whole accreditation process again. So it's a lot, it's a lot of work to do that, but it reduces our liability, it mitigates our liability. We actually get money off of our risk management costs through Primex because we're showing that we're doing all these things to try to mitigate that liability and have best practices. So a lot of reasons to do it that are all positive. Any other questions so far? All right, so we're right on track. That was a very Reader's Digest overview of the Lebanon Police Department. So just a little bit about me, if you haven't met me before. My name is Rich Mello, I'm the chief here. I was hired in 2015. I came from Hollis, New Hampshire, down south, where I was the second in command there. I've been in law enforcement for about 26 years now, and my career spanned all the way from patrolman all the way up to chief, and I've done pretty much everything along the way, from investigations, detective, sergeant, patrol, undercover investigations, technology investigations. So I've had a pretty well-rounded career before coming here. I have a master's degree in criminology from Florida State University. I teach at a couple of colleges. I teach at New England College and Norwich University. I was in the United States Navy for 12 years, mostly on the reserve side. So, I've done a lot of things that I try to bring here, and this was a really good department when I came here. So I was fairly fortunate that I had a good staff in place, we had good policies in place, and really the things that I brought here are just things that I think made us better, rather than changing a lot of different things. So someone asked about the facility. It says a really nice facility. This is original facility from 1991. When I first came here, this room, for example, had green carpet, yellow walls, it had a chalkboard, and a pull-down screen. And it was fairly useless for modern day contemporary policing and training and trying to recruit people and retain them. Up until about a month ago, this entire downstairs was circa 1991. Paint, office, furniture, you name it. Lieutenant Lowe, who just popped in, who's our patrol commander, did a lot of work along with Lieutenant Isham and Deputy Chief Roberts and really the whole staff to come up with a complete plan of renovation for this building. Which included paint, flooring, office furniture, technology upgrades. This room itself was a $60,000 expenditure out of our impact fee. So no tax money was spent on this, no budget money. We get impact fees from all these businesses, companies that come in to Lebanon, and we use that to create this training room so that we have a really dynamic area to give training to our officers, make presentations to the public, do RAD programs, things of that nature. So we do a lot of things with the eye of giving back to our community and really making a good environment for people to work in. So as you walk down the stairs and walk through this building, everything you're seeing has been kind of given a facelift. The paint, the carpets, and it was the first time really since the 1990s, which was quite amazing. But it's a much nicer facility to walk into today than it was a couple years ago. So beyond that, what the other things I try to do is bring a lot of community engagement activities to the department and the community, and you'll probably see that if you follow us on Facebook, you look at our website, listen to the radio. I mean, we're all over the place trying to tell people the good things that we're doing, and then you're going to see us with our blue lights, driving around the city as well, because that's part of what we do. But there's been really a focus on trying to be out in the community, to really break down those barriers of who we are, just beyond this badge, beyond this uniform. Who we are as people and what we can do for our residents, our business owners, our stakeholders. Solving problems is really the direction we're going in. Problem-oriented policing is our core approach to policing. It's identifying problems in the community, either something we see or something you tell us about, coming up with a strategy to solve that problem, and then actually trying to solve it and measure how we did. So that's where we're going, and that's what we brought in the last couple of years. So a couple other things you have in here. You have a organizational chart just for your own information. To kind of see how we're organized in the various divisions that we have and the people that work under those divisions. So just really a quick snapshot of who we are, because I don't want to again bore you with statistics and anything you want to know about us. If you go to our Facebook page, if you go to our website, you come to a coffee with a cop, come to any one of our events, ask questions. You'll learn all you need to know about us. And I could sit here and talk for hours on what we do, how we do it, answer your questions. But I'd like to give you a little bit of hands-on experience of what we do and how we do it as well. Because I got to do better than the fire department. That's my primary goal and mission tonight. Chief Christopoulos and I always have this competitive thing going on. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. Does anybody have any questions before we pop outside and start the fun part of our night? It's extremely hard to recruit people in law enforcement anywhere. Yep, extremely hard anywhere. When I started on this job in 1993, we had so many candidates that we were turning people away. And I say we, I mean law enforcement in general. I worked for the Manchester Police Department for about 6 years. When I tested there were a couple hundred applicants looking for 10 or so jobs. Nowadays, when we have 2 or 3 positions we filled recently, we'll get maybe 25 people to apply, and then we have about 10, 12 people show up for the test, and from that we have maybe 7 good applicants to push forward into our actual process for a background, oral boards, and things of that nature. And we don't reduce our standards. Our standards are very high for a reason, because we only want the best and brightest here. But it also makes it very difficult to hire people. So when you have to come in here, you have to pass a written test, a physical agility test. You have to get through an oral board with 3 of our officers who are looking at your character, who you are, what you bring to the table. You know, do you believe in our community? Do you believe in community policing? You know, really assessing those things. And that's just the entry-level steps. And then you get into a background where we want to know everything about you since the day you were born. You know, and that's an uncomfortable process for people. You know, we do psychological tests, we do medical tests, we do a polygraph test, and then you have to meet with me and the deputy chief to get the final sign-off as to someone, you know, who we want interacting with our residents and our people in our city. And there have been people that have gone through that entire process, and the deputy chief and I say, no, I'm sorry, you're not what we're looking for, because there are things that just don't jive or align with what we want to accomplish. And that's a hard thing to do, but if we want to mitigate our liability and stay out of the news unless it's good news, that's the way we have to do business. And not to say that we're perfect, because we're not, but you know, that's how we try to operate. Any other questions?
Do you have a sense of why the number of applicants has dropped off?
I do, yeah, I do. I think there's a number of different reasons. There's not any one given reason. I think it starts generationally, where we have a lot of good jobs right now out there in the tech field. Technology is just continuing to explode. It gives a lot of opportunities for people coming out of college. Colleges are focusing on giving our newer generations wide skill sets that they can really do anything they want when they come out of college. So if they don't go in the military, or they're not kind of predisposed to be service oriented in law enforcement, they're doing any number of different things, you know. And so there's that, you know. I think if you look at the kind of the, I don't know, we use the word stigma. If you look at the national media and how we're being portrayed in the media, we're taking it's a rough hit, you know, in the last 5 or 6, 7 years. And I think that's driving people away. I mean, that's what we're learning when we talk to people and we're looking at potential candidates. So it's not any one given thing, but there's a kind of a storm brewing that is pushing people away from, you know, public safety in general. And so we're all struggling with that across the country, not just us. And we also have the, you know, the kind of the where we're located part of that as well. You know, we can only draw from the Upper Valley. And, you know, if you're not living here, you know, where are you living? You're living down south, you're living from the Massachusetts area. When I was down south, we could draw from Massachusetts, we could draw from a lot of the New England states, and you're still pretty central. We're a little different up here. You know, you have to drive on 89 for about 55 minutes to get here if you're coming from down south, and that's a different environment to recruit in. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What would you say are sort of some of the biggest challenges y'all face day to day?
How much time do you have? You know, what's that? Well, what are our challenges? What kind of challenges? This will be the last question I take until the end, when we'll do a question and answer, because I don't want to fall too far behind schedule. But the biggest challenges I think we face, we just talked about. Recruiting is definitely one of them. We are faced with kind of the generational changes where people are doing different things with their careers, right? When I came up, and when many of the officers here came up, you got into a career, and that's the career you were in, and you stayed in that career, and that was your lane. We're seeing our people, young people coming out of college nowadays, and they're changing careers up to 5 times before they're in their 30s. And there's nothing wrong with that, except it makes it very challenging for us, because this is a 25-year career now. And we have to try to retain people for that amount of time. We invest about $150,000 into a candidate before we put them in a car by themselves to answer a call. And it takes about a year to get them there. And that's a huge investment. And when you lose somebody after 2 or 3 years of being here, it's a big hit for us. You know, it doesn't happen a ton, but you know, it happens enough that when I have to hire somebody, it's not just, all right, I'm gonna put something on monster.com, I'll have someone in here in a week. It's not the way it works for us. You know, we'll test, and the testing process takes about 3 or 4 months. And then when we hire, it takes another month or so to get them to the academy. The academy's 4 months, and then when we get them out of the academy, there's 12 weeks of field training that they have to come back and work with another officer. So if you add that all up, it's about 8, 9, 10 months at best to get someone from shaking their hand, you're hired, to driving around in a police car by themselves, you know, in sort of knowing what they're doing. So those are our biggest challenges. And then you have the drug crisis and opioids and the things you see in the news media every day are very real. And then to top it all off, we're getting killed. Being police officers are getting killed more now than ever before. We're facing gunfire more now than ever before. And I don't have the answers to those questions, but if we're talking about reasons why people don't want to do this job, it's a laundry list. It's a laundry list. So, all right, with that, let's go outside. We're going to go out this side door. We're going to see someone ride the lightning, which is very exciting. Which is, it sounds violent, but the alternative in the way we used to do business is that if I was going to go deal with somebody and that person was going to fight me, it was going to be a fight. The fight was going to be on. And the only tools I had to protect myself, maybe a nightclub or even a spray or my hands, and injuries happen all the time. When we fight people, almost 100% of the time, one of our officers gets hurt. Usually it's minor, fortunately, but almost every single time we fight somebody, someone gets hurt. Either the defendant or our officers. And we want to avoid that, and this is one of the tools that we use to do that. So it allows us to stay well away, up to 21 feet away from the person who's getting arrested or wanting to fight us. And then it saves injury to the person as well, because the person goes down, you're going to see it very uncomfortable for about 5 seconds. But once that 5 seconds is over and the taser has been disengaged, she's going to be able to get up, move around, and go about her business with no ill after effects. Go ahead. Say it again?
Recharge rate on the taser.
There's no recharge rate, so it's cartridge based. So we have a cartridge in the front. It fires out. We carry 2 with the taser.
Yeah.
So if we miss, we can put another one in. And we miss that, then we got to go to option B.
This is the taser. So, like the chief said, there is no recharge. It has a laser on it, so we can just point and shoot basically. But once you pull it, it's gonna go by 5 seconds. After that 5 seconds, if they're still not complying after that 5 seconds, you can immediately go right back to it. So there is no recharge time. All right. And these
What's
are
that, Sergeant? You want to do a dry stuff?
You want dry stuff? So this is the taser cartridge. It shoots out 2 probes, and they're effective up to 25 feet.
How accurate are they?
So they go out at a 7-degree angle. So your top dart is going to hit where your laser is, and then the bottom one's going to go out at a 7-degree angle. So you got to just take that into consideration.
So it does track the laser. They don't trip or anything there.
No, they're pretty accurate. Yeah.
I mean, what's important about it? Oh, sorry, Mike. What's important about it is you have to have that spread. If the smaller the spread, the less effective it is. And ideally, we have one in the leg area and one in the torso area, and that way the current moves before it and it shuts down the central nervous system. If we miss with one of the probes, what's called a drive stun, Sergeant Wright would have to go up and complete the circuit with the actual taser itself. Sometimes that's not possible, so if we do miss one of the probes, it may not be effective.
Right. So we try to avoid the single point contact, because basically that's just pain. It doesn't do a body lockup. So when you get 2 points of contact, you get what's called a MNI, or muscular neural incapacitation. Basically just locks up all your system, and you physically can't, if it's an effective hit, you physically can't move. All right.
You ready?
Good. Thanks for doing this.
Now, one caveat I will say is that when you get hit with a lot of electricity, I don't know what's going to come out of her mouth. So I'm going to apologize in advance. It could be nothing, but if it's not, I apologize.
All right. Taser, taser, taser. You can see how she was rigid.
Yeah, she was stiff as a board. So that 5-second run, and I think Mike cut a little short because he's nice. But for that run, she couldn't have done anything. Now she was very quiet and she knew it was coming. But you could have picked her up and stood her on her head, and she would have been stiff as a board. Because it completely locks you down, and you're unable to really do anything. And that's the beauty of it. If you can see that, they're going to pull the probes out, and we're trained how to do that. But she's going to be able to get up, talk to you, walk around. She's going to be completely fine, except for maybe a couple of bruises on her back and her leg.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the taser, and that's why we like to use it to protect our officers.
It's like full body workout.
Did someone not see it? Because we can do it again. All right. Yeah, so we'll pass this around, and you can see it. We'll show it. Sergeant Wright will walk around and show you. That's actually gone into her body, so we don't want you handling it. But if you look at it, it's like a fish hook.
You can see the fish hook. It's got a barb on
I
it.
didn't realize
It's
it.
basically a fish hook that's straightened out.
Yep.
It was just like
Like a little fish hook.
And when these are kept in a cruiser, they're loaded, ready to go when we go for demonstration. It's been cleared, so there's no actual rounds in it. It's basically just a 12 gauge pump shotgun. It would actually shoot a 12 gauge round, but per policy, we can never put a live round into this, just so there's no confusion that an officer takes it out and accidentally, we don't even carry 12 gauge shotguns anymore. But the effective range for this is 25 feet to 75 feet. Anything closer than 25 feet and you're going to do some serious damage. It will go through the skin. And again, I don't know if the chief talked to you about spots on the body that you can hit. We can hit the extremities. That's the preferred place. The back, as long as you stay away from the spinal column. And then in the abdomen. Obviously, if you're presented with a lethal option and you needed to use it, you could shoot somebody for a lethal shot with these, and but we try to avoid that. Obviously, these only get deployed if it's if we have a backup cover, somebody who has a lethal option with them. We're not going to come up with somebody who has a knife and bring this out, because we want to make sure that somebody has a lethal option in case this fails and we have to transition. We don't have enough time. Somebody with a knife can cover a lot of ground. So we always want to make sure that there's at least a lethal option. And then this is our secondary. Yes?
I guess what's the scenario? If someone has a knife, if that's not an option, what is the scenario?
It's basically a knife, a standoff. Basically, the training is kind of evolved. We don't usually rush into things. We try to stand back and try to negotiate or talk our way, or talk them into custody, or whatever it may be. If they need mental health, try to get them help. So we can just stand back, and like I said, this has an effective range of 75 feet. It's pretty good. We have sights on this, and it's pretty accurate. After 75 feet, they'll kind of veer off. So you can obviously tell, like, a taser only goes up to 25 feet, right? So we don't want to put ourselves in a situation with a taser. If somebody has a knife, we can tase them. That's fine. But what would make sense for us to close that distance just so we can use a taser? It doesn't do anybody any justice. Puts us in danger, puts the other person in danger. But if we're already in that situation, a taser is a great tool. So if we can keep our distance and maybe cover somebody with a less lethal shotgun, and we don't have to really, close the distance, I think it's better. Because if this does fail, maybe we can just retreat or get behind something and, come up with another plan for another contingency.
So if you do hit someone with that, say, near the shoulder or something, Does it knock them down or what?
No,
what's the
it's basically a baton strike. It's pain
Okay.
compliance. And you know, there's been a couple of cases where I know that we've used them, and it does at least a pretty significant welt and a bruise, but they walk away. I've never seen our department have a lasting effect on, you know, this being deployed.
Then you were mentioning that, were you saying it's only deployed if there's also a lethal option? So that way,
Generally,
basically,
yeah.
in case that fails, you need to have essentially
Yes.
essentially
So,
backup.
you know, I remember dealing with a subject who was, you know, he was not compliant. He just jumped out of his mother's car, and he had threatened that if she called the police, that he was gonna kill them. So we had the information that he was gonna. So I actually found him, and you know, based on the threat, I drew my sidearm, and I immediately called for, you know, a secondary option. And that next officer brought up this, and he was right next to me, and you know, we know when to use this, and you know, if that doesn't work, and we need to, you know, use lethal, then that's there. But yes,
So it sounds like primary option is de-escalation.
absolutely.
And then secondary option, if a second officer is available, would be non-lethal, and really try to keep lethal as your last resort.
Absolutely, definitely. All right. So like I said, it's basically a 12 gauge shotgun. The safeties are the same, and it racks the same as a shotgun.
Yeah, so it leaves a pretty good hole, doesn't it?
Yeah, leaves a mark.
Yeah. It's a lot more violent than I thought it would be.
Again, that's even really people with,
Yeah.
If you're accurate at 75 feet.
I also said it's, you know, tasers are only effective up to 25 yards.
yeah, so again, we're real close here,
Yeah.
but he's, and I know you see cardboard, but you also have to remember that, you know, you're wearing a heavy winter jacket. It's a different, you may not even, what was that?
Right. At 60
You know.
or 70 feet, it still has to have an effect when it gets there. So.
So this is the projectile. You guys can pass that around.
But this pepper ball system is used more than just actually less lethal by shooting it at somebody. There's also like marbles that we carry in the tubes. That's if someone locks themselves in the car, they're going to harm somebody or themselves. Instead of us running up and trying to punch the window out, these will take the window out. So shoot the back window out, and then we can gain
And you
access.
can follow it up with pepper rounds. And basically,
Yeah, that's the other thing it's used for. Houses or apartments, it also will take the window out, and they can put these live pepper rounds into a house and have that person come out. Like, instead of sending in an officer or a canine, it depends on the situation, but that's always an option. If we shoot 10 or 12 of these in your living room,
yeah. It's also used for pain compliance. Like just like the less lethal shotgun, you can go, and it's basically the same areas that you can hit. But a lot of times, if you just saturate a room, you're basically gassing it with not using gas. It's just pepper.
it goes away very quick. Like, 15, 20 minutes, you open the windows, it's completely gone.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is the pepper ball gun. It's basically a, if anybody does any paintball, it's just a souped up paintball gun, the same idea. We fill our tanks here. And this is our reservoir. You can put, you can just load these up and have it ready for the cruiser. Just a simple turn of the gas and it charges it. It's ready to go. And it's semi-automatic, so every time you pull the trigger, it's gonna recycle and shoot another another pepper ball.
What's the distance on this one?
They're not as good as the beanbag as far as accuracy. We like to use them for saturation. You know, you put it in a car, you can break out a glass, and you can follow the pepper with it and just saturate a car and it forces somebody out of a situation.
They'll go over 100 feet though, but they lose velocity.
Yeah. If I don't know if anybody's ever shot paintball. You can see them kind of veer. So it's tough to hit the good shots. You don't, like I said, if you're up close, it's good for paint compliance. But if you're trying to get that distance shot and try to knock a knife out of somebody's hand, you're not going to do it. It's just not going to work.
So you carry those in your cars?
Yep, we have 2 of these.
We have 2 of them. One's always in West Lebanon, one's always on the city side, as we call it.
Pretty clear over here.
Clearly see the powder.
Yeah.
And then imagine that being a bunch of those peppers.
That was
Just- And even outside, like if somebody's in the bushes or they're standing behind, say that electrical meter right there, we could just blast either in front of them or behind them, and it's going to push them out. So
So you don't even have to hit them with it.
you don't have to hit them. You can. Obviously, if his head's just sticking out, you don't want to hit somebody in the head with one of these. But you could saturate the area, and it's another technique.
So our dogs are also get involved with our tactical team. So again, it helps the tactical team do their job better. It helps them with perimeters, stuff like that, because you put the dogs out on a perimeter, there's really nowhere for the bad guy to run. So the dogs actually do a lot. And the drug work, to me, the drug work's kind of the drug work and the tracking work is really our bread and butter. So and these last 2 dogs that we've trained up don't do marijuana. So we've gone away from the marijuana dogs. We still have 1 left. Just because the way trends are going these days, it doesn't make any sense to really train them up. And plus, we smell it half the time anyway, so. So Nitro here is going to do a quick demo on drugs. And so basically, what we're looking for when we send our dogs out for drug work is, when we send them to search, we're looking for a change in their behavior during that search. And every dog's a little different, and it's the same with tracking and anything else these dogs do. The handler has to pick up on all these small little cues that we get, so we understand when the dog is in odor, when he's not in odor, when he's goofing around, when he's not goofing around. And then once the dog finds the odor, you want it to do a final indication, which is our old dogs did an aggressive alert, which was scratching at the source. These dogs that we're training up now are sitting. So that eliminates some of the property damage and stuff that would happen in the past. So Nikki, you have stuff set up?
I have a box over there behind Sergeant Wright, and then I have bags in the hallway.
Don't tell the dog.
And I don't know if
Yeah,
Officer
don't yeah, the
Perkins,
dog's listening right now. He's like, I already know.
if Officer Perkins covered this, but everything that these dogs do is for reward. It's praise driven. Like when he finds a narcotic, he'll look at us or all of them, and he's gonna want his toy. So that's.
How old is he?
He's 2. So he's 2, yeah. He's birthday's in May, so he'll be 3 in May.
It's everything's
Everything's a game. Even if that dog, if you were to send that dog after one of you right now, and the dog actually attacks you, to the dog it's a game. When he's done with you, he's like, "Where's my toys?"
You gotta remember, dogs don't have hands, so for them to grab is their mouths. And when we train these dogs up, we're not training them to do damage. What we're looking for when we find these dogs is we want a dog that's gonna go in there and, for lack of better words, humanely grab somebody, hold them, and when the person decides they're gonna give up, then have the dog come back to us.
That's fine.
Sergeant Wright's been there with my dog. It was sent on an apprehension, and it was a very clean, not at all, no thrashing or anything like that. We don't want to do harm to people if we don't have to.
Just a 3-day.
So
Yeah.
apprehension is
The Duncan's bag.
he goes in and sort of.
Yeah, so basically, the dog's job in that situation is either to protect us, the other officers, or you. So if we have to send a dog to protect one of you, or to protect one of us, that's what he's there for. It's basically the same use of force as that taser, or a baton strike. But generally, I will tell you this. Generally, if you get a dog out of the car, when a guy or someone is being super aggressive, you get the dog out of the car, a lot of times, they'll want to fight with us. You get a dog out and they're like, okay, we're done. I don't want to fight. Because think it's the psychological effect that you get out of it where fighting another person, they realize that we have rules. And a dog, you get out of the car and you look at a dog that's fired up and they go, well, I don't know what that guy's going to do to me, so.
All right, so,
I'll let you get that.
yeah, thanks. So Nitro's a passive alert dog. He's going to sit when he finds the odor, or when he finds, so he's trained to find the odor of drugs, and so when he does find them, he'll be working. You'll actually hear him. Like right now, he's panting. That's how he cools himself down and gets a little worked up. But what he does is when he starts to work, his mouth is going to close, and you're actually going to hear him start to breathe a lot differently. And that's going to be him intaking, trying to find out where the odor is. So right now, he's probably, like I haven't given him command to find drugs, but he knows that they're in the room. He knows that already. So, thank you. I see. So we do 3 different types of searches. We'll do a free search, which is the dog is off lead and he goes around fine. We do a directed search, which is possibly, we come down the wall and I'm giving my, yeah, see, so not on new paint. Okay. So what we'll do is then we do a directed search and then we do detailed search. And if you guys saw, they had a press release on Nitro's first day of work. He was really interested in a car door, but we couldn't really figure out what it was. He wasn't necessarily alerting. I mean, a change in behavior is an alert for us, and I was paying attention to how he was acting around the door, and he was getting upset and barking. If they're in the odor but they can't find it, and they get frustrated, they start to bark. He was really upset. I told the officer to check the door, and in the armrest of the car was where the meth was hidden. So he's trained to find cocaine, crack cocaine, meth, ecstasy, and heroin. So he knows those drugs, and once the dog smells it, they'll never forget it. So they smell it once, they never forget it. And so he knows that right now, he's like, okay, I can tell you there's something in this room. So I'll try to give him the drug command here and see if he'll focus for me. He's very excited.
For those of you that want to stand up, I don't know if people can actually.
So there's a box I taped over there, right? He doesn't know that the box, the little brown box behind
Oh,
him.
you smell shampoo.
So we're doing a directed search, we're bringing him along. And he knows that the drugs are somewhere. Check. Did you see that? Cowboys! So, yeah, so what he does is he's telling me they're there. And so what he likes to do is go, boy, good boy. His ears go up, he gets all pumped up, he's like, I found it, And he looks back at me. This is one of those things that's on a table. If it was on the ground, he would have sat immediately. But for him, yeah. His commands are in French as well. He was actually born and raised in Connecticut, and the guy that owns him, Scott Beebe, trained him for French ring and IPO, which is basically, it's like they send the dog out, he's to find somebody. It's like a JP, how long is the whole course?
It's the easiest way to understand it is it's like competition. It's like shifting. So it's points-based competition, but French ring tends to be a little more on the nitro, out the apprehension side of things. So it's pretty intense for the dogs.
Yeah. So anyway, so he was trained initially. The in thing is to have your commands in French because it's called French ring. So his commands, like for him, nitro assis is to sit, coucher is to lay down, and then I've been training him. I actually had to Google it for the heel, which is how long we yell that out, and he's supposed to come to my side. So I have drugs in the hallway.
Skip that.
What's that?
We're going to go right outside.
Oh.
To save some time.
So if one quick note, it's good to, so when you guys notice he used the odor when he was standing over here, he was kind of pointing to go this way. So humans have 5 million of olfactory receptors in your nose. Well, the average German Shepherd, each breed is a little different. You go to a bloodhound, it's ridiculous. But the average like German Shepherd and Shepherd breeds are 220 million. So if you think about that, it's ridiculous what they can smell.
He found it.
So that's why they're so good with their noses, and really everything they do, if you think about it,
it's a look, their nose is going to do for almost everything that we do.
So they can find just minuscule amounts of things.
Well, think about, so the easiest way to explain it is like, you go on a pizza joint, you smell pizza. That dog smells every ingredient on that pizza. So you just know, hey, this smells like pizza in here.
So in general, or I was on a jury once where it was a drug deal and the dog had done this, in general, is the move kind of away from that because of
We still train that with some dogs in the program, like I said, I'm a trainer, so whatever. But for our purposes here in Lebanon, we've decided to be a little more on the side of caution when it comes to not trying to do property damage. So, because I mean, we never tried to do it. You pull the dog away as soon as you start to see him alert, because sometimes you're gonna get scratched. So we're gonna go outside. I'm gonna get my dog out real quick, and we're just gonna do a quick apprehension so you guys can see the bite work.
So Blesk is from Slovakia. I'll explain a little bit. So just I would try not to clap or anything, just because he's in business mode. I don't want to draw his attention to you guys. You can clap for me after Don't fight my dog! Don't hurt my dog! Good boy! Good boy! Alright. Let's go! Out! Here! Here! Good boy! Good Oh boy! Yeah! Don't you hurt my dog! Ready? Yeah. Let's out! Good boy! Good boy! Who wants it next? Can I walk?
We'll pick you up.
Sounds like your dog wants a piece of the action.
Somebody else in there is jealous.
Nitro knows how to do it. That's his absolute favorite thing to do. The tug toy. So the big thing with bite work and that sort of stuff is control. So if you saw how quick he came off that sleeve. You have to put yourself in a dog's mind. There's nothing more fun than that sleeve. It really isn't. Because not only are they getting to play tug, but they're getting to play complete tug with somebody. So they got your undivided attention, and it's the ultimate. So for me to have that kind of control, it's hard. But for us, the big thing is obedience, obedience, obedience. But they're dogs. They have a mind of their own. They're going to have bad days. They're going to have good days. It's my job to make sure when it's a bad day, I'm on my A game. So.
If it's a real situation, do they treat the arm like a type toy?
So when we have different things that we use for training to not just go for arms. That particular thing is a sleeve. In my trunk I have a full competition bite suit, which is pants, jacket. Max, my dog that passed away, he had an arm bite, a face bite, and I think a leg bite.
And a couple of
Yeah.
Do they do the whole shaking and tagging?
No, because again, when we train that stuff, if you didn't even notice with Blesk, he wasn't trying to thrash.
Yeah, that's true.
He was just holding him. He's been taught that that's what's important. Let the person fight, but he holds.
So the person does the tagging and thrashing.
Right. What Officer Alden was trying to do at that point was just get him excited.
Okay.
I mean, you can drag that dog's whole body weight by its mouth. That's insane.
Well, he's 85 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hold my body weight by my teeth,
Yeah, when you think about the jaw pressure of a dog, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
And his
it's
head's the size of this case, so it sort of feels like a house falls on your arm.
And we don't push this bite work a lot. We do it to maintain that aspect of our jobs, but we don't do a ton of it extra because you could also make that dog into an alligator.
So you want to make sure the dog understands it's a game, and it's a game that's going to be played when we say we're going to play it. And like, I don't know, I'm sure he mentioned it, but he could come out of the car now and I could not have the sleeve on, and he would be like, where are the treats? Hey friend, you know, he'd want me to pet him. He wouldn't come out of the car like a missile and try to eat me, which was good.
He might go over and see if the sleeve's laying over there or over there, but he's not going to come out to try to hurt Nick. So we don't. And all our dogs are that way. All three of our dogs are very. They calm down fairly quickly, and they understand that's not part of the game isn't being a jerk. The game when the tug or the sleeve work is done, it's going back to being a normal dog.
Don't point it at anything you don't intend to shoot at, right? So when you're talking to people, don't be Italian and do this with a gun. That's dangerous. You're going to see that none of our actors have any actual weapons on them, meaning they've already been searched, they've already been gone through, so we know they don't have their service pistol on them, they don't have any knives, they don't have anything that's going to hurt you. We do that in training. We go to great lengths to make sure that it's a sterile environment. You're the only one that's going to have anything that fires anything, and it's going to be this gun right here. So what any scenario you say, even if there's a weapon involved, it's going to be a dummy weapon, okay? Anybody have any questions about that? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to have you guys sit into the command van, unless you want to be in here and watch.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Oh, come on, man. Come on, what are you going to do, huh? What? Come on. You know, punching with a gun?
Man, put the gun down. I don't want to have to shoot you.
All right, so you're over. Good job.
That's scary.
Yeah.
She's going to go. She's trying to run. She's going to run. Help me, please, 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 help me.
Good job. You're over.
Oh, you want to be a Here you go, I'm sorry.
No, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to do it. Trust me. Don't get worked up into this, okay? I'm just going to do this myself. I don't need this. I don't need this. Go home. Leave me alone. Please, leave me alone. You don't want to do this, okay? What's the problem? What happened? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. My mind is made up. You need to leave now. You need to leave now. Listen, I'm not here to listen to you, okay? I'm going down. I'll take you out with me if you don't leave. This is your amnesty period. Leave. Leave. I'm telling you, I'm going to take you out with me. I'll do it to you. I'll do it to you first, okay? Because I have no right to live. I don't deserve to live, okay? If you don't leave me alone, I'm going to do it. I swear to God. I swear to God. Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this. You probably have a family. You probably have a wife. I don't want to do this to you, okay? Don't make me do this. You need to leave. You need to leave. I'm telling you, you need to leave.
So, questions of us. Any questions of anything you've seen tonight? Any questions of us, the organization, anything at all?
So I have a non-lethal question.
Oh.
People like speed in my neighborhood when I'm walking on the
Yep.
sidewalk and whatnot, or like there's the sidewalk ends. Is there no way that I could kind of maybe, what can I do about that, I guess?
What street do you live?
I live right off Bank Street Extension.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I often say that one of the things we're ultra focused on, because I said to part of the group when the other group was outside, we train this way and we do these scenarios, but this is like such a small part of our job. We deal with these scenarios, but very, very, very irregularly. And so the vast majority of what we do is quality of life issues. People speeding in your neighborhood, theft complaints, those types of things is what we go and spend most of our day on. So we get a lot of complaints about quality of life, which is like the speeding in your neighborhood. You can let us know, and we can go down there, we can try to pay attention to it, we can try to do some speed enforcement, we can put our radar trailer out there, we can do some speed studies to see if there's anything else, any other solutions that might be available to us that might be make sense depending on what the data looks like. But that's how we deal with those, because we can't be everywhere at once, and your street is one of probably hundreds that have that same problem. And like I said before, 3, 4, 5 people on the street at a time, it's really tough to be everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so what you can do about it is you can try to just let us know what's going on, times of day that it's happening. what you're seeing, and then we can do some data-driven approaches to try to, either raise attention to people that there's a speeding problem, do some enforcement, back that up with the radar sign, some education. But those are generally our approaches to those situations.
So those radar signs are typically data collection?
They can be. So our big radar sign is a data collector, but we also have a pole-based data collector that we put on a pole, and it monitors speed in both directions, and it gathers data and tells us the average speed, mean speeds, when it's happening, the data logs throughout the day.
It's not getting a license plate, sir.
Not getting license plates. Not yet. It's not going to talk to you. It's not going to get license plates. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So similar on the scenarios, if you guys had to deal with like false alarms, I mean, like there have been swatting calls around the country where like gamers. Yeah.
We have not yet had a swatting call, and I'll knock on wood, because that is a scary scenario. I don't want to say we've had any false scenarios, because the scenarios when you're talking about violence and guns and those types of things, generally people only call us when that stuff's actually happening. We've been fortunate not to have any swatting, and if you're not familiar with what swatting is in the gaming world, people are getting back at each other by calling up and saying, hey, Joe Smith, who lives at this address, he's got someone at gunpoint in this house, and then they call the police, and we go down there and we bust in, or we try to handle it, and it's a fake, false calls. It's happening a lot in the western part of the country, but no, we haven't dealt with that, fortunately. Yeah, knock on wood. Any other questions? Yes.
How many female officers?
We have 4. Yep, we have 4. And for us, that's just a little over 10%. And if you look at nationally and you look at New England, that's actually pretty good. We're actually kind of ahead of the curve there. And we're looking, we're always trying to recruit more diversity and more female officers, because they bring a lot to the table for us, and they bring things to a situation that, and I'm not trying to sound sexist, that men don't bring. They have a lot of de-escalation, a lot of things that women are much better at, and they make outstanding officers. And what I'm finding is that we're having a decrease overall in candidates coming to us and trying to become police officers, but we're seeing an increase in female candidates coming to us, and they tend to be, on the average, much better candidates. And so that's what we're finding, and we've hired quite a few. So we're pretty excited about that. Any other questions?
Do you ever share calls with other communities? We live right up by the Hanover line in West Lebanon.
Yep.
One of our neighbors was concerned that, well, we're so far from the Lead police station, but there's that Hanover cop that's always right down, at the entrance to the cemetery. And he was wondering, like, what would happen if something happened, he had to call the police? Would there be a Hanover cop closer, or would they come, or does it mean somebody has to come across the city?
So we share mutual aid agreements with every contiguous community around us, and what that means is that we can call on them for help, they can call on us for help, and they have authority to come into our jurisdictions when we call and ask for that. So in that scenario, if it was something serious, we could start our officers on the way, and we could call mutual aid for Hanover to get there. And if they got there first, that's great, but we would still respond. Yeah.
Because of the drugs, what trends are you seeing as far as, more people breaking into houses to get money and stuff like that, or is it a big difference?
It's a noticeable difference. It's a noticeable trend. But that trend's been around for a long time. We're seeing increases in opioids and increases in methamphetamines and some of those drugs, but people stealing, shoplifting, breaking into cars, breaking into houses, that has been a trend for a long time. It does ebb and flow a little bit with the activity, and we've definitely seen an increase in the last couple of years. But that has been, and that's an age-old problem as far as how they're getting money to support that drug habit. Now the drugs itself, and that trends, those are always changing. But people have been stealing stuff for a long, long time.
That guy in White River Junction that tried to rob the bank, didn't plan, I'm like, hello, this is nuts, but stuff like that, you just...
Yep, and that bank robbery was drug driven. That bank robbery was people who needed money to go buy drugs. They stole that money, they got on the highway 91 South, and that's where they went. And that's what their intention was.
Do you guys carry Narcan?
We have it, we have it in all the fire vehicles. I think they probably told you that. Every fire vehicle, every command vehicle has it. And when the fire chief and I review this every year, we look at our response times. And what we found is that the fire department is pretty even with us as far as response time. And we don't carry it directly in our cars with the exception of the canine cars. And we have some here at the station. And the reason we don't is because we find the fire department arrives pretty at the same time as we do. But our canines do because the dogs could be susceptible to a powder-based opioid, and then they have it dosed for them in case they run into that.
They can also soak it up in their pads.
Yeah.
So if they step in it, they can send them into.
We have some here at the station in case one of our officers handling evidence gets exposed. But if one of our officers on the street gets exposed, pretty dangerous, but we're pretty confident that the fire department, in the way they respond, will get there to be able to administrate that for us. Keeping it in cars in the conditions that we work in is very difficult.
Yeah.
And you have to change it out a lot if you're not using it.
You mentioned that you had, I think it was 2 officers through a grant program.
Yes.
So is that I assume there's a finite time to that grant?
There is.
What happens at the end of the grant? Do you hope to keep them on?
Yeah, we cross our fingers and we go into the council and ask them to continue that. So 3 years, it's $250,000 for 2 officers, $125 per officer. And there's a share split with the feds, and they pay up to $250, and then we're responsible for the rest. In year 4, we're responsible for the entire amount. But the council also has the opportunity at that point to say we don't want to continue that, and we'd have to lay off the 2 officers.
So that's then fairly similar to what they were talking about at the fire department.
Yes, the Safer Grant. Yep. Yep.
And then the other question I would have is if you, is there anything that you feel like you're really lacking right now? Is there something else, like you have your brothers, is there a new piece of equipment or some sort of training that you'd like to have?
Yeah, so I would split that into 2 things. If I had a finite, infinite amount of money, which would be nice, I would split it in 2 ways: personnel and then some facility requirements. This facility is really nice. I like it here. I really hope we don't have a public safety facility in the future because I think this is really good for us. The one thing we do lack though is storage space and garage space or space to store cruisers and get in and out of the elements. And do repairs and maintenance and things of that nature. We lack, this is a small training room, and really if you think about, we have 38 total officers with our part-timers. We can't fit everybody in here to train. So that's kind of it was built in the 90s when that wasn't much of a concern. So, and then talk about female officers, we have 4 right now. We have 5 female lockers because when they built these stations in the 1990s, we didn't have a lot of female police officers. Well, that trend is changing. Our locker rooms should be equal. Like we should have as many lockers for females as we do for males. But every police station across the country that's built, before 2010 has the same problem. So those are our challenges. We're short a couple officers considering what we need to do as far as, providing services to the community. But I think we can do, what we have. But if I had, a magic wand, that's what I would ask for. Any other questions? No? Okay. So I just want to thank you for coming out. I know we crammed a lot into 3 hours, and I'm sorry to keep you here a little late. But here's what I would tell you, that come back in the future for another Citizens Academy, and maybe we'll have additional sessions. You're welcome to email me, call me, come to a Coffee or Cop event, come to any other event, ask us questions. Reach out to us if need be, and if you ever need our services, certainly don't ever hesitate to call us. And I really appreciate your time and attention, and I hope I didn't traumatize anybody tonight. Send me the bill. No, don't send me the bill. Send the city manager the bill. But thank you again for coming. I really appreciate you. You were really a great group.
Thank you.
Thank you to our actors and our officers who did a really good job. I didn't have to get shot by anybody tonight, so that was poor Alan. I'm not sure what your name is, man, but you shot more.